The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. It came down in thin, relentless lines that turned our dirt yard into a swamp of mud and sorrow. The roof above my room leaked in steady drops, each one echoing like the slow tick of time that refused to pass. I sat on the edge of my small wooden bed, staring at the single candle trembling on the table. Its flame bent with every gust that slipped through the cracked window, making the shadows dance across the peeling walls. That was my world quiet. Small and unwanted. My name is Alara, though my parents rarely used it anymore. They called me girl, or worse, burden. I'd once imagined that love lived here, that beneath their harsh words was a spark of care. But after my body failed to do what they believed a woman was made for, that illusion died too. The healer had told them years ago. She will not bear children. The moon did not bless her womb. I had been 12 then, too young to understand what that truly meant, but old enough to see the disappointment in my mother's eyes and the disgust in my father's. From that day I was marked. A reminder of their shame. Now, at 20, I had become little more than a ghost in my own home. The air was cold that night. My father's voice drifted through the thin walls from the next room, harsh and impatient. No one will take her, not even for free, he spat. We're lucky this one's offering silver. My heart skipped. I pressed my hand against the wall, feeling the vibrations of his anger. My mother's voice followed, soft, tired, resigned. It's better this way. At least she have a roof. Maybe work in a household far from here. Far from here. The thought should have comforted me. But it didn't. It felt like a graveyard wish, the kind you whisper over something already lost. I closed my eyes, trying to shut out their words. The candle sputtered beside me, and the flame suddenly stretched tall and thin, flickering blue for a moment before returning to gold. It shouldn't have done that. The window rattled. And outside, through the rain-slicked glass, I thought I saw something move at the edge of the forest. Tall figure, still and dark, almost blending into the trees. My breath caught. The woods beyond our home are old, older than the village itself. People said strange things lived there, creatures born under the blood moon, half human, half beast. I used to laugh at the tailies as a child, but tonight, under that stormy sky, the laughter had long died in me. A distant howl echoed through the rain. Long, low, sorrowful. It wasn't the cry of a dog. I lit another candle, though my hands trembled. The flame's glow made the room feel smaller, the shadows closer. My chest tightened with something I couldn't name. Fear, yes, but also curiosity. What had I seen? The moments stretched into silence until I heard the crunch of wheels outside, the sound of a carriage arriving. I peered through the slit in my window. 2 black horses stood in the mud, steam rising from their backs. A man in a dark cloak stepped down, his presence commanding even from a distance. The rain didn't seem to touch him. When lightning flashed, I caught a glimpse of his face, strong, sharp, too perfect to be human. His eyes glimmered faintly, like gold catching fire. I stumbled back, my heartbeat racing. My father opened the door before the man could knock. I couldn't hear their words clearly, but silver clinked, and my father's tone shifted from bitterness to forced gratitude. That was when I understood. The man in the cloak wasn't just a guest. He was the buyer. I sat frozen as footsteps approached my door. My mother entered first, her face pale. She didn't meet my eyes. Pack your things, she said. You're leaving tonight. Leaving? My voice cracked. Where? She hesitated, glancing toward the door where the man's shadow stretched long across the hall. Somewhere better, she murmured. He's offering you work. A chance. A chance. That was her way of saying goodbye forever. I don't understand, who is he? But she was already gone. I stood, the floor cold beneath my bare feet, and reached for the only things I owned: a thin cloak, a worn book of moon legends, and a small pendant shaped like a crescent. It had been my grandmother's, the only one who ever believed I was meant for something greater. I clasped it tightly now, whispering the words she used to say, "The moon sees all, even the hidden hearts." When I stepped outside, the rain stung my skin, and the stranger turned toward me. Up close, he was taller than I expected, his presence heavy but not cruel. His cloak shimmered faintly as though woven from mist. "Miss Alara," he said, his voice deep and calm, with an accent I couldn't place. "I trust you're ready." My father avoided my eyes as he took the pouch of coins. "She's yours now," he muttered. Those words hollowed me out. The man's golden gaze flicked to my father, then to me. "She was never yours to sell," he said softly. Then, turning back to me, he extended his hand. "Come, the storm will worsen." My throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to run, yet something stronger, something ancient, pulled me toward him. I placed my hand in his. His touch was warm, steady, and for a moment, the world went utterly still. The rain fell quieter. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He led me to the carriage, and I climbed in, the leather seats cold beneath me. As the door shut, I looked back through the window. My parents were already inside, the light of our cottage flickering weakly through the storm. I thought I'd feel relief leaving that house of scorn behind. Instead, I felt only emptiness. The carriage wheels began to move, splashing through puddles. We rode in silence for a long time. The stranger sat across from me, his hood casting shadows across his face. I tried to study him without staring, but his presence filled the small space. Finally, I found my voice. "Why me?" I asked quietly. "Why would someone like you come for someone like me?" He turned his head slightly, and I caught the faintest hint of a smile. "Because the moon doesn't make mistakes," he said. His words sent a shiver through me. Outside, the forest grew thicker, darker. The rain softened to a mist as we crossed beneath its ancient canopy. The scent of pine and earth filled the air. And then, just for an instant, I saw them through the window. Eyes, dozens of them, glowing faintly between the trees, following us as we passed. I pressed my hand against the glass. "What is that?" The man's voice was calm. "My kin," he said. "They're making sure we arrive safely." "Kin?" Before I could ask, a howl rose in the distance, low, powerful, and strangely mournful. The horses didn't flinch, but my heart did. The stranger's golden eyes met mine through the dim light. "Do not fear the sound," he said. "They sing for the moon tonight." And as the carriage rolled deeper into the forest, I realized the night wasn't just dark, it was alive. Watching, waiting. Something had changed the moment he touched me, and somewhere beyond the trees, under the heavy clouds and silver rain, destiny stirred awake. The forest swallowed us whole. The rain had eased to a whisper, yet the air outside was heavy, thick with mist that curled like breath around the trees. The carriage wheels creaked as we followed a winding path deeper into the unknown. I tried not to look out the window again. Every time I did, I thought I saw something move, something quick, shadowed, and just beyond the edge of sight. Yet, it wasn't the kind of movement that came from an ordinary creature. It was fluid, almost graceful, like the night itself bending to watch. The man across from me hadn't spoken in nearly an hour. His hood remained drawn low, but every so often I caught the faint gleam of his eyes in the dim light. They reflected the lantern flame, not yellow, not brown, but molten gold, shifting as if alive. The sound of the horse's hooves slowed suddenly. My body leaned forward with the motion, and I caught the driver's muffled voice outside. "My king, the mist grows too thick. Should we wait for dawn?" "My king." I froze. Before I could ask, the man lifted his hand, signaling silence. "Keep going," he ordered. "The moon still guides us." The driver hesitated only a second before urging the horses on. "My king." The words echoed in my mind like a bell. Who was this man really? And why did my father hand me over without question? As if he'd known what this stranger was. Inside the carriage, the air felt colder. The wood creaked softly. And now and then, I thought I heard faint whispers beneath the rumble of the wheels. They weren't words, more like sighs that rose and fell with the rhythm of my heartbeat. I told myself it was the wind. The forest was old. Old things made strange sounds. But when one whisper drifted close to my ear, a single, breathless murmur of my name, I knew it wasn't the wind. Elara. I jerked upright, heart pounding. The man looked up instantly, his gaze sharp. "What's wrong?" I swallowed. "Someone," said my name. He frowned, listening. For a moment, even the forest seemed to hold still. Then he shook his head slowly. "You're hearing echoes," he said. "This forest remembers voices. It sometimes repeats them." "Repeats them?" "From those who once passed through." His tone was calm, but something flickered in his expression. Something like worry, quickly hidden. I pressed my hands together in my lap to keep them from shaking. "How much farther?" "Not far now," he said softly. "But the way is changing." The path began to slope upward. I could see faint light through the fog ahead, lanterns, maybe, or moonlight breaking through the clouds. My nerves started to ease until the carriage lurched suddenly, throwing me sideways. The horses neighed, panicked. "What's happening?" I cried. Before I could move, the man pushed open the door and stepped out into the rain. His movements were unnaturally fast, silent. I leaned toward the open doorway, straining to see through the mist. That's when I saw the shapes. Dark forms, half hidden by fog, circling the path ahead. Their eyes glowed faintly red, and I could feel, not hear, but feel a low growl rumbling through the air. My hands gripped the edge of the seat. "Are those wolves?" The man's voice came from somewhere ahead. "No, not mine. Not mine." The word sent a chill through me. A low howl rose from the fog, answered by another. Closer this time. The air vibrated with tension. I thought the forest itself might break apart from the sound. The man raised one hand, palm outward. The mist around him shimmered faintly, like moonlight trapped in glass. A strange stillness followed, then silence. The red eyes blinked once, twice, and vanished. Just like that, he turned back to the carriage. His hood had fallen away now, and for the first time, I saw his face clearly. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, hair as black as the night sky, and those eyes. Golden, fierce, yet impossibly sad. "You'll be safe now," he said quietly, climbing back inside. His cloak was dry despite the rain. My voice trembled. "What were they?" He looked out the window instead of at me. "Things that hunt the lost," he said. "You were never meant to be one of them." We rode in silence again. My thoughts churned. Things that hunt the lost. The forest repeating voices. And his eyes, how they glowed like flame when danger drew near. I didn't know what kind of place he was taking me to, but the air around him felt older than the world I knew. When exhaustion finally claimed me, I drifted into uneasy sleep. In my dream, I stood beneath a silver moon. The forest stretched endlessly around me, but the trees were made of glass, reflecting my face in 100 broken pieces. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked, the same golden eyes watching me. "You don't belong to them," he said. "You belong to the moon." Before I could speak, the ground cracked open beneath me. I fell into darkness and woke up with a gasp. The carriage had stopped. Dawn was still far away, yet a faint grey light had begun to push through the fog. The man opened the door and stepped down, offering me his hand again. "We're here," he said. I hesitated, glancing past him. A set of massive iron gates stood before us, twined with vines and carved with symbols I didn't recognize, circles and crescent shapes that seemed to pulse faintly as I stared at them. Beyond the gates, I could just make out the outline of something vast, a castle, rising like shadowed stone out of the mist. "This is your new home," I whispered. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Ours." My breath caught. "Ours? You'll understand soon." The gates opened by themselves, groaning softly. The carriage rolled forward into a world that felt untouched by time. Lanterns burned with blue flame, lighting the path to a sprawling fortress surrounded by silver lakes. The air shimmered faintly, as though laced with unseen magic. Despite the beauty, I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. It was too still, too quiet. As we crossed the final bridge, a whisper brushed past my ear again, faint but clear this time. "Run." I turned sharply, searching the carriage, the windows, the mist outside. No one was there. "Did you hear that?" I asked. Hail, he told the driver to call him my king, and the name still lingered in my mind, met my gaze. His expression darkened, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw unease flicker across his perfect composure. He leaned closer, his voice low. "If you ever hear that voice again," he said, "do not listen." "Why?" "Because it belongs to something that envies the living." The carriage came to a stop before the castle gates. He stepped out first and extended his hand. I hesitated only a moment before taking it. As soon as my foot touched the ground, the pendant at my neck grew warm, too warm, and I looked down to see the crescent charm glowing faintly through the mist. Cale noticed. His golden eyes widened slightly. "Where did you get that?" "It was my grandmother's," I said, startled. "Why?" For a heartbeat, the air around us shifted. The mist thickened, curling close like breath on glass. The blue lanterns flickered. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "Then the moon has been waiting for you much longer than I thought." Something moved high above us, too quick to see clearly, but large enough to cast a shadow across the courtyard. I looked up, my breath catching as a single feather drifted down black as ink, glinting faintly in the moonlight. It landed at my feet. Cale's jaw tightened. "Inside. Now." I stared at him. "What was that?" He didn't answer, but as he led me toward the doors of the great castle, I could feel the forest behind me watching. The air hummed with secrets, and though I didn't yet know it, the night had already chosen me. I never believed that silence could have a heartbeat until that night. The forest behind the orphanage had always been a place I feared. During the day, it was only trees and light, 1,000 shades of green whispering secrets I never cared to hear. But at night, it changed. It breathed differently. The wind didn't just pass through, it seemed to listen, to wait. And that night, I felt it listening to me. After the whispers began, those faint voices calling my name. When no one was around, I'd stopped going outside after sunset. But something in me had grown restless. It wasn't just fear, now it was a pull, as if something out there wanted me to come closer. I told myself I'd just go to the edge of the woods and look, just to prove to myself that there was nothing there. The moon was bright, a silver coin tossed high into the sky. My breath came in pale clouds. Each step felt heavier the closer I got to the trees. The air smelled faintly of pine and rain, though it hadn't rained in days. Then I saw him. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. He stood among the trees, half in shadow, half in light, tall, still, and watching me. My body froze. My heart didn't. It kicked hard against my ribs, as though it recognized him before my mind did. "Who are you?" I called, my voice sounding much braver than I felt. No answer. Only the low hum of the wind, brushing through the leaves like fingers through hair. I took a cautious step forward. "You shouldn't be here. This is private property." He stepped forward too slowly, soundlessly. The moon caught his face for just a second. That second was enough. He was not from this world. His eyes, impossible eyes, were silver. Not grey, not blue, but silver like liquid metal, glowing faintly under the moonlight. His skin looked pale, too perfect to be real. And there was something ancient about him, as though he'd seen centuries pass and carried the weight of all of them in the way he moved. "Don't be afraid," he said softly, his voice deep, smooth, almost melodic. "You've felt me before, haven't you?" My mouth went dry. "Felt you?" He tilted his head slightly, like he was trying to remember how to speak in a way humans do. "In your dreams. The forest has been calling you for nights. You've ignored it, but your blood hasn't." I took a step back, my pulse racing. "You're mistaken. I don't even know you." He smiled sadly. "Not yet." A soft gust of wind passed between us, carrying the faint scent of pine, smoke, and something else, something metallic. "Why are you here?" I whispered. "Because they sold you," he said, his voice darkening. "But you were never theirs to sell." Every part of me went still. "What did you just say?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes softened, but they didn't lose that strange brightness. "You were marked long before they called you broken. There's a power in you buried, sealed away. They feared it, and they tried to silence it. But He stopped himself. I swallowed hard. "But you what?" His gaze flickered toward the sky, then back to me. "I can't say more. Not yet. If they know I found you." A sound cut through the night, a long, low howl in the distance. It wasn't a dog. It was deeper, more primal. He tensed, his silver eyes flashing brighter. "Go back inside, now." My voice trembled. "That sounded like, 'Don't say it,'" he interrupted sharply. Then softer, "Please go." But I couldn't move. My feet refused. He took a step closer, and even though everything in me screamed to run, I couldn't. His presence wasn't just magnetic, it was gravity itself. Every nerve in my body felt alive, humming, pulled toward him. When he stopped barely a few feet away, the air around us thickened, charged with something unseen. His gaze locked onto mine, searching, almost desperate. "You're in danger," he said quietly. "They're coming sooner than I thought." "Who?" I asked, barely a whisper. "The ones who think you belong to them." His voice was low, but filled with a strange tenderness, like he was trying to protect me and warn me at the same time. The howl came again, closer this time. My breath caught. His hand twitched at his side, as though fighting the urge to reach for me. "I can't stay," he said, his voice rough now. "Not yet. But remember this, when the moon bleeds red, don't run. Find the river. I'll be waiting." The wind picked up violently, sweeping through the trees like a living storm. I covered my face from flying leaves, and when I looked again, he was gone. Just like that. No footsteps, no sound, only the echo of his words in my mind and the trembling beat of my own heart. I stood there for what felt like forever, staring at the spot where he had been. And then something glimmered faintly at my feet. I bent down and picked it up. It was a silver pendant, shaped like a crescent moon, warm against my palm despite the cold air. When I turned it over, I found a mark carved into the back, an ancient symbol that made no sense to me, but felt familiar. A sudden wind whispered through the trees, again soft this time, almost like a voice brushing against my ear. Soon, Lyra. My name. I stumbled back, clutching the pendant to my chest. My pulse thundered. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those silver eyes that seemed to see everything I'd tried to hide. And though I should have been terrified, I wasn't. Because deep down, beneath all the fear, something inside me whispered back to the darkness. It knew him. It always had. For the first time in years, I was afraid of mirrors. Every reflection felt like it showed more than me. The girl who looked back carried the same eyes, the same face, but there was something behind her. A faint shimmer, like mist trapped behind glass. I told myself it was the stress, or the sleepless nights since I'd met him. The silver-eyed stranger. No matter how I tried to convince myself it had been a dream, my palm told a different story. The crescent pendant I'd found that night still lay warm whenever I held it, even hours after leaving it untouched. Sometimes I swore it pulsed like a heartbeat. That morning I tried to lose myself in routine. The orphanage kitchen smelled of bread and old wood. The younger kids were laughing, fighting over toast. For a while, their noise helped drown out the memory of the forest. But the peace didn't last. When I reached for the kettle, the handle was scalding. I gasped, dropping it, and yet, when it hit the counter, there was no sound. The water didn't spill. The kettle didn't move. It just hung there, frozen in the air, mid-fall. I blinked. Once, twice. And then it dropped crashing down, spilling boiling water across the floor. The children screamed, and I stumbled back, my hands shaking. No one else had seen what I saw. They were too busy cleaning up the mess. But I stood frozen, heart pounding. For those 2 impossible seconds, time had stopped. Or maybe I had stopped it. Later that day, I went to the market in town to clear my head. The air outside was crisp. The clouds stretched thin like silk. I tried to focus on the normal things. People talking, carts rolling, vendors shouting over one another. But the world didn't feel normal anymore. The faces around me blurred sometimes, like smoke caught in wind. The colors of the sky shifted unnaturally. And then just for a moment I saw him. Across the street, half hidden in the fog that had rolled in too suddenly to be natural, stood the silver-eyed man. Our eyes met. The market's noise dulled. The air thickened. I couldn't hear, couldn't move. He didn't speak. But something passed between us, a flicker of warmth across my chest, like sunlight under my skin. And then he was gone. By the time I got back to the orphanage, it was raining hard. I hurried inside, clutching my coat tight, trying to shake off the feeling that someone was following me. The hallways were dim and quiet. Too quiet, Miss Lyra? A small voice called from the stairs. It was Daisy, the youngest girl in my care. She held her stuffed bear close, her curls damp from tears or sweat, I couldn't tell. Daisy, what's wrong? I asked gently. Her eyes darted past me, toward the door I'd just closed. There's a man outside. My stomach tightened. A man? What kind of man? She hesitated. He was tall. His eyes were shiny. He said not to be afraid. My breath caught. Did he say anything else? She shook her head. He just said you have to wake up soon. A chill swept through me. I ran to the window, but the rain was heavy, blurring everything. Still, I could have sworn I saw a figure standing near the edge of the forest, where the trees met the road. Watching. Waiting. That night. I dreamed again, but it didn't feel like a dream. I was standing in the forest, moonlight cutting through the mist like silver blades. My hands glowed faintly, the pendant around my neck thrumming like it was alive. And from the shadows, a low voice whispered, "You can't hide from what you are." When I turned, The man was there closer than he'd ever been before. His silver eyes caught the light, and though his face was calm, his expression was pained. "What am I?" I asked. "Bound," he said. "To a destiny neither of us can escape." Before I could ask what that meant, the earth shook beneath us. The trees bent inward, and from the darkness, a shape emerged, something massive, moving with the sound of claws scraping stone. He reached for me. "Wake up, Lyra, now!" I did, gasping, my heart racing. But my room wasn't dark. It was glowing faintly, silver light spilling from the pendant still clutched in my hand. I sat up, breathing hard. The glow faded slowly, leaving behind only moonlight through the window. Then dash knock. 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 3 slow knocks at the door. My heart froze. Everyone should have been asleep. I slipped out of bed and approached quietly. "Who's there?" No answer. The knocking came again, louder this time. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. When I opened it, the hallway beyond was empty. But on the floor lay muddy footprints. Large ones. Fresh. Leading into the building. Not out. I followed them down the corridor, every step making my pulse thrum faster. They led all the way to the back door, the one that opened toward the forest. The door stood slightly ajar, wind whistling through the crack. I closed it quickly and locked it. But when I turned back, a figure was standing at the far end of the hall. Tall. Perfectly still. Silver eyes glinting faintly in the dark. "Why are you here?" I whispered, my throat tight with fear and longing all at once. He stepped closer, the shadows sliding with him as if they belonged to him. "You're no longer safe," he said softly. "They found you." "Who?" "The ones who traded your blood long ago." My knees weakened. "You're not making sense." "I will," he said. "But not tonight. Tonight, you must come with me, or you'll never see another dawn." The storm outside roared louder, the window panes rattling. I could smell the forest again, wet earth. Pine. Something wild. And just as I opened my mouth to speak, the hallway lights flickered out. In that heartbeat of darkness, I heard it, an inhuman growl echoing from outside, closer than any animal should be. When the lights came back on, the stranger was gone, vanished into thin air. But the door he'd warned me to lock was wide, open again. And from the trees beyond, a pair of burning eyes stared back at me. Not silver this time. Red. Alive. Hunting. The morning after the storm. Silence ruled the orphanage. The children whispered about strange noises in the night, about shadows moving past their windows. I didn't tell them what I'd seen. I didn't tell them about the red eyes that had watched me from the trees, or the silver-eyed stranger who vanished into thin air. But deep down, I knew he wasn't gone. All day, I felt his presence like the soft hum beneath music you can't quite place. When I turned corners, the air shifted. When I stepped outside, the wind whispered my name. That evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. I wrapped myself in my shawl and walked toward the woods. The moon hung low, swollen and pale, lighting a path between the trees. "Show yourself," I whispered. "If you're real, if any of this is real, stop hiding." The forest answered, not with words, but with stillness, the kind that makes you aware of every breath you take. And then, "I didn't mean to frighten you." His voice came from behind me, low and careful, like it belonged to the night itself. I turned slowly. He stood in the shadows, the moonlight cutting across his face. His silver eyes glowed faintly, and for a heartbeat, I forgot to breathe. "You didn't frighten me," I said, though my trembling hands betrayed the lie. He stepped closer, his boots barely making a sound on the wet earth. "You should not walk here alone. The forest is alive tonight." "Alive?" I repeated, trying to sound steady. He looked past me, toward the distant ridge. There are forces stirring. They've sensed you now. Who are they? I demanded. He hesitated, then met my gaze again. Those who would use your blood to finish what began long ago. His words chilled me. And who are you exactly? I am the one who's sworn to stop them, he said softly. Even if it costs me everything. We stood in silence for a moment. The air was cool and thick with pine. The moon painted his hair silver, and though everything in me wanted to run, something stronger kept me still. Why me? I asked quietly. Why protect me? I'm no one. You're wrong, he said. His expression softened, and a shadow of sadness passed through his eyes. You were sold because they feared what you might become, because they couldn't destroy what was in your blood. I shook my head, stepping back. My parents sold me because I couldn't bear children, because I was broken. His jaw tightened. That's what they told you. Isn't it true? No. His voice was sharp now, almost angry. They sold you because they knew your bloodline carried power, the kind that cannot be bound by human greed or superstition. My heart pounded. You're talking nonsense. He sighed, closing the distance between us until only a few feet remained. You felt it, haven't you? The world bending around you. The moments that don't obey time. The whispers that call your name. I froze. He had no way of knowing those things. Who are you? I asked again, my voice trembling. And what do you want from me? He hesitated for a long time before answering. My name is Kaylin. And what I want? His gaze dropped briefly, then rose again, filled with something I didn't understand. What I want no longer matters. What matters is that you live. We walked together through the woods. He didn't speak much after that, and neither did I. But in the quiet, something shifted between us, something wordless yet heavy. When the wind grew colder, he shrugged off his cloak and placed it over my shoulders. His fingers brushed my collarbone, barely a touch, and yet it felt like the world held its breath. You don't have to be afraid, he murmured. I'm not, I lied. He gave a faint smile. You should be. Fear keeps you alive. Then why aren't you afraid? He turned his gaze toward the moon. Because I've lived long enough to know fear doesn't change fate. We reached a clearing where the trees parted to reveal the sky. The moon hung above us, bright and impossibly full. Its light spilled over the grass like silver water. Kaylin looked at it with an expression I couldn't read. Part sorrow, part longing. Does it call to you too? I asked softly. He didn't answer for a while. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. It's not the moon that calls to me tonight. Our eyes met, and something inside me cracked open. A strange warmth. Terrifying and beautiful. For a moment, it felt like the air itself recognized us. Like the world was holding us in stillness. But before either of us could speak again, the ground trembled. The air thickened. The shadows deepened. Kaylin's eyes flashed silver as he turned sharply toward the dark edge of the clearing. They're here, he said under his breath. Who? Run, he ordered. Now. Before I could move, the trees behind us began to twist unnaturally, their roots pulling free from the earth. A low growl echoed through the forest, a sound that made every instinct in me scream not human. Kaylin's hand shot out, grabbing my arm. His skin burned cold against mine. Don't look back. We ran, branches snapping under our feet, the forest alive with movement. I could hear something chasing us, heavy, fast, relentless. When we reached the ridge, he stopped suddenly, pulling me behind a boulder. His breath came fast, his eyes glowing brighter now, unnervingly bright. "What are you?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He seemed to be fighting something inside himself, his muscles tensed, his jaw clenched. "Caleb," I said again, my voice shaking. "Tell me the truth." He looked at me then, the light in his eyes no longer just reflection. It was real. "I told you," he said softly, voice trembling with control. "I was sworn to protect you." Protect me from what? From my kind. The air went still, and before I could process the meaning of his words, I saw his pupils narrowing, his teeth sharpening as his face shifted, just for a heartbeat, into something not human at all, not something ancient. Something wolf. I stumbled back, my breath caught in my throat. He turned away sharply, fists clenched, his body trembling like he was holding himself together by sheer will. "Now, you know," he whispered, his voice rough, almost broken. "This is the truth you weren't meant to see." And with that, he disappeared into the trees, leaving me alone under the silver light, my heart racing with terror, and something far more dangerous than fear. Because even now, after everything, I couldn't shake the truth I didn't want to admit. The monster who had saved me was the only one I'd ever felt truly safe with. For 3 days, Kalen didn't come back. The forest outside the orphanage seemed quieter without him. Too quiet. As if the world itself was waiting for something to happen. The trees didn't whisper. The wind didn't stir. Even the moonlight felt heavy. But peace never stays long in my life. On the 4th night, I woke to the sound of howling. It wasn't the distant kind you hear from stray dogs. This one was near, too near. The walls trembled with its echo. The children stirred in their sleep, but I stayed frozen in my bed, clutching the pendant around my neck. It had begun to glow again, softly at first, then brighter with each passing second. I slipped out of bed, heart pounding, and crept toward the window. Outside, the forest was alive. Shadows raced between the trees, and for a moment I thought I saw eyes, silver, red, gold, all flashing in the dark. And then, from the tree line, he appeared. Caelan. But not the Kalen I remembered. His eyes burned brighter, his posture feral, his hands clenched like claws. His chest rose and fell as if he were fighting something deep inside. He looked up straight at me. And even through the glass, I felt it. The pull. The strange, magnetic thread that connected us. I should have been terrified. I was. But there was something else too. Fascination. Because even in his monstrous form, I recognized him. By morning, he was gone again. I told myself it was just another dream. But dreams didn't leave footprints in the soil beneath my window. I needed answers. So that night, I followed the trail. The forest was silent except for the sound of my breathing. Every step I took sank softly into damp earth. I could feel something watching me, unseen but constant. When I reached the clearing, I found him there. Kalen knelt beside a stream, his reflection trembling in the moonlight. His shirt was torn, his shoulders tense, his hands covered in dark soil. "You shouldn't be here," he said without turning. "I had to see you," I whispered. He rose slowly and faced me. The look in his eyes was unreadable, half human, half something else. "Last night," I said carefully, "I saw what you really are." His jaw tightened. "Then you should run." "I'm not running." He let out a low, bitter laugh. "You don't understand, Lyra. My kind doesn't belong in your world. When the moon rises, we lose what's left of our control. You think I'm your protector, but one day I might be your doom." "Then why save me?" "Because fate demanded it." He stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw the faint mark at the base of his throat, glowing silver under the moonlight. It looked like a crescent, the same shape as the pendant I wore. You bear the mark too, he said, his gaze softening. It's in your bloodline. You were born of two worlds, human and something older. My parents were ordinary, I protested. He shook his head. No, your mother was gifted. Your father was sworn to protect her kind. When you were born, the balance shifted. They tried to hide you, but those who served the darkness found out. Selling you wasn't betrayal, Lyra, it was desperation. The only way they knew to keep you alive. His words hit me like a wave. So, I'm not human? You are, he said gently. But you are also more. We walked by the stream, the moonlight glimmering across the water. I could see the sorrow in his face when he spoke, as if every word cost him a piece of himself. There's a prophecy, he continued. It says that one born with the mark of the moon will either end the curse or awaken it forever. And what curse is that? The one that binds us. His voice dropped low. Every Alpha King carries it. We were once guardians of the realm between man and beast. But when pride turned to bloodlust, the balance broke. My ancestors were punished, condemned to walk as wolves beneath the full moon, ruled by hunger, chained to destiny. So you're... He looked away. A werewolf, yes. The last of my line. The Alpha King of nothing but ghosts. I stared at him, unsure if the night air had frozen me or his words. And what do I have to do with any of this? You were born with the same power that once bound the curse. Your blood carries the light that can undo it. I shook my head. That sounds like a story. He stepped closer, eyes soft but burning. It's not a story when it's written on your skin. He reached out and brushed his fingertips against my collarbone where the pendant rested. Beneath it, I felt warmth and a faint pulse, and the outline of a mark I'd never seen before began to shimmer. A crescent, just like his. I stumbled back, overwhelmed. No, this isn't real. It is, he said. And they'll come for you because of it. Who? The ones who thrive on chaos. The ones who cursed me. I tried to catch my breath. You mean the red eyes? He nodded slowly. Vampires. Once kings in their own right. Now bound to the shadows, feeding off the remnants of what they destroyed. So the old stories, they're true. Every story begins with a truth, he said quietly. Even the ones about monsters. We stood there in silence, the air thick with unspoken things. Part of me wanted to run from him. Another part wanted to step closer to reach for the one creature who'd risked everything to protect me. Kaelin, I whispered. If I'm part of this, if my blood is connected to your curse, then what happens to us? He looked at me for a long time, his expression unreadable. Then destiny will decide what happens next. We returned to the orphanage before dawn. He insisted on walking me back, though he kept his distance, as if being too close might break something sacred. At the gate, I turned to him. Will I see you again? He hesitated. You shouldn't want to. But I do. His lips parted, but before he could answer, the sound of movement came from behind us. A shadow slipped across the path quick, silent, wrong. Kaelin's body tensed. He moved faster than I could see, placing himself between me and the darkness. A voice drifted through the air low and mocking. Alpha, protecting a human again. How noble. How doomed. From the trees, a tall figure emerged, eyes glowing faint red, skin pale as moonlight. Go inside, Lyra, Kaelin growled. The figure smiled. So this is her, the half-blood girl, the one your ancestors feared. Before I could move, the air split with a raw, deep, guttural, nothing human. Kaelin lunged forward, but the stranger vanished in a blur, melting back into the forest. Kalen turned to me, his eyes still glowing, his expression wild. You weren't supposed to see that. I already did. I whispered. His voice cracked as he said, Then you'll never trust me again. And before I could stop him, before I could even reach out, he was gone, disappearing into the mist as the first rays of sunlight touched the earth. I stood alone, heart pounding, the scent of rain and iron thick in the air. And for the first time, I wondered if the monster in my dreams was the same one I'd begun to love. The wind that night howled like a wounded creature, carrying the scent of pine, rain, and something else, something that made my heart twist in both fear and longing. I stood by my window, staring at the dark stretch of forest that had become both my sanctuary and my curse. The moon was rising, swollen and red, and the air felt thick with warning. I hadn't seen Cale in 3 days. Not since the night he admitted confessed that he wasn't fully human, that something ancient pulsed beneath his skin, that the shadows obeyed him. Since then, I couldn't sleep without hearing echoes of his voice in the wind. I told myself to stay away, to forget the way his eyes had burned gold in the dark. But the truth was cruel. I missed him more than I feared him, was still staring into the forest when the floorboards creaked behind me. My body tensed, breath catching. Cale, I whispered. No answer. Only silence and the steady patter of rain on glass. Then dashed footsteps. I turned sharply, heart pounding, only to see my aunt standing in the doorway, her shawl clutched tightly around her shoulders. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. You need to leave this place, she said. Now. Her voice shook in a way I'd never heard before. Aunt Mara, what? They know, she interrupted, stepping closer. The elders. They've seen the signs, the full moon, the birds dying in the fields, the wolves howling near your window. They say you've been marked. I felt the words sink like ice into my stomach. Marked? Her gaze darted toward the woods, where the wind bent the trees like bowed figures. By him, the Alpha. My heart stuttered. Cale. Her lips pressed into a thin line. He's one of them, Leora. The last of his kind. His power is dangerous, and if the council believes he's claimed you... I didn't let her finish. He hasn't claimed me, I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I wasn't sure they were true. There had been that night under the willow, when he touched my hand and whispered something in a language I didn't know. When the air had seemed to breathe around us. He's not what you think, I whispered, but my voice trembled. Aunt Mara stepped forward, gripping my shoulders. You don't know what you're saying. His world doesn't belong with ours. If you stay, they'll come for you both. Her words hit like a strike of thunder. Before I could respond, a sound erupted from outside deep, guttural and unmistakably inhuman. A howl that shook the very air. Aunt Mara's hand flew to her mouth. It's begun, she breathed. I ran to the window. The forest seemed alive, rippling with shadows. I saw movement eyes glinting in the dark, a blur of fur and smoke. Wolves. Dozens of them, circling the edge of the clearing, but at their center stood one taller, stiller, his form shifting between light and shadow. His eyes, even from a distance, locked on mine. Cale door burst open. A man stumbled in one of the villages, his face streaked with blood and fear. They're coming from the east. Wolves, huge ones. They've taken the shepherd's barn. He stopped when he saw me, and in his eyes I saw something worse than terror. Condemnation. It's her, he hissed. The cursed girl, the one who brought this. Aunt Mara moved in front of me. Enough, leave her be. But others were gathering now, drawn by the noise, their torches lighting the storm-dark night. Voices rose in panic, in anger. Burn the forest. Someone shouted, "End the curse." "No," I cried, but it was too late. The mob was already moving toward the trees, fire sparking in their hands. I ran out after them, the rain soaking my dress, the wind clawing my hair. I could hear the wolves' now growls, snapping jaws, chaos. The smell of smoke filled the air. Then, through the blaze and confusion, Cale appeared. He looked torn between worlds, his body trembling with the effort to stay human. His eyes glowed faintly gold, his breath harsh. "Leora," he said, voice breaking through the storm. "You shouldn't have come. They're burning the forest." I cried. "They'll kill you, I told you," he said, stepping closer. "My kind doesn't die easily." But I could see the pain in his face, the cost of restraint, of holding back what he truly was. Behind him, one of the wolves lunged at a villager. Cale turned, growling something low and commanding, and the creature froze mid-stride, retreating with a whimper. The villagers saw, and that was enough. "Monster," someone yelled. "He controls them." A torch flew through the air. Cale moved faster than I could see, snatching it before it hit me. The flames reflected in his eyes, no longer gold but burning crimson. I stepped back, breath shaking. "Cale, what are you?" He stared at me, and in that moment, the storm went silent. "Not what you think," he said softly. "That everything you feared." And then he was gone. The fire, the wolves, the people, everything seemed to vanish into the night. I stood alone in the clearing, my heart pounding, the smell of smoke still thick in the air. Above me, the red moon burned like an open wound, and deep in my chest, something pulsed, something not my own. A mark, a promise, a destiny I could no longer deny. The village burned long into the night. By morning, smoke curled over the blackened forest, and the air hung heavy with the scent of ash and fear. The people whispered about curses and monsters, their eyes darting toward me when they thought I wasn't looking. They thought I didn't hear their words. The cursed girl, the Alpha's mark, the omen. But I heard every syllable. I spent that morning packing what little I had, my hands trembling as I wrapped a wool shawl around my shoulders. Aunt Mara hadn't spoken since the fire. She sat at the table, staring at her tea, her face drawn and pale. When I finally turned to leave, her voice cracked through the silence. "Leora, there's something you must know." I froze. She'd said those words before quietly, years ago, the night my parents sold me to the merchant who took me away. But then, she'd stopped herself, saying, "It's better you don't remember." Now, her tone was different, urgent, frightened, and sad. She motioned for me to sit. I hesitated, then obeyed. "There's a reason the Alpha found you," she began. "A reason he called you his fated mate." Her words felt heavy, unreal. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "You carry the same blood that runs through his kind. It's faint, almost hidden, but it's there." I shook my head. "That's impossible. My parents were not who they claimed to be." The room seemed to tilt. Aunt Mara looked older now, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Your mother came to this village from the north 20 years ago, with a wound she never explained and a baby she refused to name. That baby was you. The villagers whispered that she was cursed, but I knew better. I saw the mark on your shoulder the day you were born, the crescent scar. It's the same mark carried by the moon-blooded." I touched my shoulder instinctively. Beneath the fabric, I'd always had a faint scar there, shaped like a curve of light. I'd assumed it was from childhood. "Moon-blooded," I repeated. Her eyes glistened. "Descendants of those bound to the first Alpha by the moon itself." Neither human nor beast, but something in between. The old texts call them the Shadowburn. Their destiny is complicated. The word felt like an understatement. I leaned forward. You mean? Kale and I were drawn together by fate, she said, finishing the thought I couldn't. You two were never meant to meet. The prophecy warned of this. It said that when the last Alpha and the last Shadowburn cross paths beneath a blood moon, the world will change. One will rise and one will fall. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It didn't say which. My chest felt tight, my pulse uneven. But my mother, I whispered. Where is she now? She died the night she tried to flee the prophecy, Aunt Mara said. She thought by giving you to human hands, she could protect you from it. But fate doesn't forget, Leora, and now it's found you again. I stared at the table, the wood blurring as tears filled my eyes. So all this time, it wasn't a curse. It was destiny. Destiny, Aunt Mara said softly, and blood. Outside, the wind rose, making the shutters groan. I thought I heard something in it a whisper, low and familiar. My name. I stood suddenly, heart racing. He's here. Aunt Mara grabbed my wrist. If you go now, there's no coming back. I never truly belonged here, I said. And before she could stop me, I opened the door and stepped into the wind. The forest felt different now, alive in a way that almost recognized me. Every rustle, every flicker of shadow carried a strange sense of welcome. I walked until the path disappeared and the trees thinned into silver mist. That's when I saw him. Kale stood at the edge of a stream, his reflection trembling in the moonlight. His clothes were torn, his expression weary, but his presence still magnetic, still dangerous, pulled at something deep inside me. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly. You always say that, I replied. And yet, here I am. He almost smiled, but the shadow in his eyes never left. The villagers know the truth now. They'll hunt anything that bears my mark. That includes you. I learned something, I said, stepping closer. About me. About my mother. He looked up sharply. Your mother? She was one of you, wasn't she? A Shadowburn. His eyes darkened. Then it's true. I frowned. You knew? I suspected, he said, voice rough. The first night I met you, I felt it, the same pull that binds our kind. You weren't afraid of me. You should have been. But something inside you recognized me. The stream shimmered between us like glass. There's more, I said. There's a prophecy. It says when we meet, one of us will rise, and the other will fall. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then softly, I've heard it too. Then you knew this would happen, I said. You knew from the beginning that being near me would destroy us both. I hoped it wouldn't. His voice broke slightly. I thought I could fight it, but fate has its own will. He turned away, his reflection breaking into ripples. You should run, Leora. Before it chooses. I reached for him before I could stop myself, my hand brushing his sleeve. His skin was cold, yet the air between us burned. I'm not running, I whispered. Not anymore. Kale's gaze met mine, ancient, sorrowful, full of something unspoken. Then, suddenly, pain shot through my chest. A searing heat, bright and unbearable. I gasped, clutching my heart as a faint glow pulsed beneath my skin, the crescent mark on my shoulder, flaring like molten light. Kale's eyes widened. No, not now. The air crackled. The trees trembled. Somewhere above, thunder rolled across a moonlit sky. What's happening to me? I cried. Kale caught me as I stumbled. It's your bloodline, he said. The prophecy is waking it. My vision blurred. I saw flashes wolves running through fire. A woman who looked like me standing beside a man with golden eyes. The moon dripping red. And then, I heard it, a voice not my own. The one who carries both bloods will decide the fate of all kind. When I opened my eyes, Cale was staring at me, his face pale, his expression torn between awe and fear. Leora, he whispered. You're not just the last Shadowburn. He stepped back, his voice trembling. You're the heir of the first Alpha. The world tilted. I shook my head. That's not possible. But deep inside, I knew it was. The mark on my skin pulsed once more, bright, undeniable. And from the woods behind us, a low growl rose in answer, not from Cale. From something older. Something that had been waiting for me to remember who I truly was. The forest trembled as if holding its breath. The glow beneath my skin faded, leaving me cold and shaking. Cale stood before me, his eyes burning gold, his body still tense from what he'd just witnessed. You're the heir, he said again, voice low, almost reverent. The blood that began our kind runs in you. I could barely process it. But I don't understand. I'm human. Not anymore, he whispered. The moon has claimed you. The air between us shimmered, heavy with something that felt both ancient and alive. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong. But deep inside, something pulsed a rhythm that wasn't mine alone. Then from the woods came a sound that froze us both. A horn. Long and low. Cale stiffened. They found us. Who? The council, he said grimly. They've waited centuries for the heir to rise. They'll want to control you or destroy you before your power awakens fully. I took a step back, heart pounding. Destroy me? Cale turned sharply, scanning the shadows. There's no time. We have to move. He grabbed my hand and pulled me through the trees. The forest blurred past us, branches whipping in the wind. I could hear distant howls, the thunder of hooves, and somewhere beyond it all a voice, deep and echoing, calling my name. Leora. I stumbled, my grip on Cale tightening. Who's calling me? He didn't answer. His face was grim, focused. Keep running. We stopped only when we reached the ruins, an old stone circle half swallowed by moss and moonlight. Cale finally released my hand, turning toward the shadows that stretched beyond the broken walls. This was once sacred ground, he said, where the Alpha line first began. No council soldier can cross it without invitation. I caught my breath, staring at him. So this is where it all started. He nodded slowly. And where it might end. The wind shifted, and for a moment, the world felt utterly still. I looked at Cale, the way the moonlight carved silver across his jaw, the faint exhaustion in his eyes, and I realized something that scared me more than the council or any prophecy. I didn't just need him. I trusted him. Cale, I said quietly, what happens if the prophecy is true? If one of us must fall? He hesitated, his throat tightening. Then I'll make sure it isn't you. Before I could respond, a sudden gust of air swept through the ruins. The torches Cale had lit sputtered and went out, plunging us into darkness. A voice followed a woman's voice, soft and cold. Protecting her won't change her fate. Cale. From the mist, a figure stepped forward. Her hair was pale as frost, her cloak shimmering like moonlight. Her eyes glowed faintly silver, the mark of the council. Cale tensed. Erindra. So it's true, she said, her gaze sliding to me. The lost heir walks among mortals. The moon's chosen reborn in a cursed child. I swallowed hard. Who are you? She smiled faintly. A messenger. The council commands your surrender. You belong to us now. Kale moved before I could, stepping between us. She belongs to no one. Erindra's expression darkened. You defy the council again? How many times will you risk your kind for one mortal's heart? I don't serve the council anymore, he said. Then you serve her? His silence was answer enough. Erindra tilted her head, her tone calm but dangerous. You can't protect her from what's inside her, Kale. The moon will rise again, and when it does, she have to choose. The alpha or the blood. What does that mean? I demanded. Erindra's eyes met mine, pity flickering there. It means you can't be both. And then, she was gone, vanishing into mist. I turned to Kale, my heart pounding. What did she mean? Why can't I be both? Kale ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Because the heir's awakening comes with a choice. You can embrace the alpha's power, become the ruler of all clans. Or you can hold on to your humanity. You can't do both. So if I choose one, I whispered, I lose the other. He nodded. Your heart, or your soul. I stared at him, my voice barely a whisper. And what about you? He froze, his eyes flickering toward me. What about me? If I choose humanity, do I lose you too? For a moment he didn't answer. Then he stepped closer, his voice soft and pained. If you choose humanity, you'll live. You'll be free from this curse. And yes, you'll lose me. The words tore through me like wind through glass. And if I choose the alpha's power, his gaze locked on mine, then you'll save my kind. But you'll lose yourself. The ruins seem to close around us, the weight of fate pressing down like a storm. Why does it have to be this way? I asked, my voice breaking. Kale took my hand, his thumb brushing against my skin. Because destiny isn't kind. That sometimes love can be stronger than prophecy. Before I could speak, a tremor ran through the ground. The stones of the circle began to glow, ancient runes lighting up beneath the moss. Kale's hand tightened around mine. What's happening? I cried. The prophecy, he said, his eyes wide. It's reacting to your blood. The air shimmered with power. I felt the mark on my shoulder burn again, pulsing in rhythm with the earth. Light coiled around me, white and blinding. Kale shouted something, but I couldn't hear him. The sound vanished, replaced by a hum like the song of the moon itself. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything went still. When I opened my eyes, Kale was gone. Only his voice lingered in the wind-soft distant. Find me, before the next blood moon. And in the center of the ruins, where he had stood moments before, lay a single silver pendant, the same one he'd always worn around his neck. I picked it up, trembling. It pulsed faintly with warmth, as if still connected to his heartbeat. The choice was no longer a distant prophecy. It was now. And I was standing alone at the edge of two worlds, human and immortal, torn between love and destiny. The night air crackled with electricity as thunder rolled across the hills. The forest below the old mansion swayed like a dark ocean. I stood by the window, my reflection flickering in the glass, heart pounding louder than the storm itself. He hadn't returned yet. Every minute felt like a question I didn't want answered. The love interest, the man who had once appeared so calm, so controlled, had vanished into the woods after whispering, "Stay inside no matter what happens." But staying still had never been my strength. I pressed my hand to the cold glass. A faint light flickered deep in the trees, then another. Shadows moved between the trunks. My breath caught. Something or someone was out there with him. I turned as the door creaked open. "Elias?" I whispered. But it wasn't him. It was Mara, one of the villagers who had warned me since the beginning. Her face was pale, her eyes full of a strange mixture of pity and fear. You have to leave this place, she said, voice shaking. Tonight, before it's too late. I frowned. What are you talking about? She stepped closer, clutching something in her hands, an old book bound in cracked leather. He's fighting them, she whispered. His kind. The ones who want the curse to last forever. They know what you mean to him. And that means you're in danger. A bolt of lightning lit the room. For a heartbeat, I saw the truth in her eyes. He's not what you think, she said. But neither are you. Before I could ask what that meant, a howl rose from the forest. It wasn't human, but it wasn't beast either. It sounded like pain wrapped in thunder. Mara's face went white. It's begun. And then she ran. I didn't follow. I couldn't move. My body trembled as I turned back to the window. The storm had grown fierce, branches twisting, wind howling like voices calling my name. Through the chaos, I saw him. Elias. He emerged from the forest, drenched and torn, eyes glowing faintly gold in the lightning. His shirt was ripped open, and beneath his skin, something seemed to move like veins of fire fighting to stay hidden. When he reached the porch, I ran to him. What's happening? I cried. He grabbed my arms, his touch burning hot. You weren't supposed to see me like this. Like what? I asked, breathless. He looked at me with such pain it felt like a blade. Like what I truly am. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Rain poured between us, thunder roaring like the sky was breaking apart. He whispered, I've been trying to keep it from you, from everyone. But the curse won't hold much longer. His voice cracked. They're coming for me and for you. I shook my head. Why me? I'm no one special. Lightning flashed again, and he stared at me as though I'd said something impossible. You really don't know, do you? My pulse raced. Know what? He stepped back, his expression torn between love and fear. You're the last of them, he said softly. The bloodline that can either free me or end me. I felt the ground sway. That's not possible. It is, he said. Your mother made a pact long before you were born to protect this valley. To protect me. But her death broke the seal. I stumbled back. My mother? The woman who'd raised me in quiet normalcy, who'd never once spoken of magic or curses or ancient secrets. Elias's voice was raw. You carry her power now, and that's why they're hunting you. Before I could respond, a deep rumble shook the mansion. The candles flickered out. Windows shuddered. The wind seemed to scream. He turned toward the door, his eyes glowing brighter. They found us. Who? I whispered. The ones who never wanted peace. The doors burst open. A blast of cold air swept through the hall, scattering papers and ash. Outside, shadows moved tall, swift, impossible to define. Elias stepped in front of me, his voice low and trembling. Stay behind me, no matter what. Elias, please, do you trust me? The question hit harder than the thunder outside. I did trust him, or at least I wanted to. But everything I'd seen tonight made trust feel like a fragile thread in a storm. I don't know, I whispered. He turned to me, eyes softening. Then let me earn it. He raised his hand, and for a heartbeat, the storm obeyed him. The wind paused. The rain slowed. Even the thunder seemed to wait. The shadows froze at the edge of the porch. Their eyes glowed faintly red. They whispered in a language I didn't understand. Elias looked back at me. Go upstairs. Find the book Mara gave you. Read the last page when I tell you. No, I said, shaking my head. I'm not leaving you. His gaze held mine, fierce and full of something I couldn't name. You're stronger than you think. But if you stay, You'll lose everything. I wanted to argue, to fight, to hold him. But before I could, he turned toward the shadows and raised his hand again. The air shimmered with light gold and white and something ancient. Then, all at once, the world exploded into sound. The windows shattered inward. The lights went out. And in the darkness I heard Elias cry out, half in rage, half in pain. Elias! I screamed, reaching for him. But when the lightning flashed again, he was gone. Only the storm remained. I fell to my knees, clutching the old book, its pages fluttering wildly in the wind. On the final page, just before it tore free, I saw a name written in my mother's handwriting, Elias. And beneath it, a warning: when the curse breaks, love will be the first to bleed. The candle beside me flickered back to life just long enough for me to see that I wasn't alone. A shadow stood at the top of the stairs watching. But it wasn't him. It was something else. Something wearing his face. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was worse. Rain dripped from the cracked ceiling of the old mansion. Every drop echoed like a heartbeat I couldn't silence. The candles had burned out. The air smelled of smoke and wet stone. And I was still clutching the torn book that carried my mother's warning. When the curse breaks, love will be the first to bleed. I stared at the doorway where Elias had vanished. The shadows had swallowed him whole, leaving only that impossible image burned into my mind. His glowing eyes, the flash of gold light. And then, nothing, but something deep inside me whispered he wasn't gone. Not yet. I stood slowly, my knees shaking, and looked toward the staircase. The figure that had worn his face was gone now, though I could still feel its presence lingering, watching, waiting. The air hummed faintly, like the world was holding its breath. Then, from the broken doorway, a soft wind brushed past me, carrying his voice. "Don't be afraid." I froze. "Elias?" It came again, softer this time, like a sigh carried on memory. "Find me, before the dawn." I didn't think. I just ran. Out the door, into the forest that still glistened with rain. Branches dripped silver, and the moon hung low, full and heavy, painting the world in a ghostly light. Every step I took echoed with something deeper than fear. I wasn't just searching for him anymore. I was searching for the truth. The trail led me to the heart of the valley, where the ground opened into a hollow surrounded by ancient stones. I'd seen this place before in dreams I'd always dismissed as imagination. But now it pulsed with faint golden veins running through the earth. And in the center, chained by light itself, was Elias. His eyes were closed, his body trembling as threads of gold light bound his wrists and chest. The chains weren't made of metal, they were made of his own power, glowing and alive, twisting like roots of fire. "Elias!" I cried, rushing forward. He lifted his head weakly. "You shouldn't have come." "I had to," I said, kneeling beside him. "Tell me what to do." He looked at me with such pain that I almost couldn't bear it. "If you break the chains, the curse will end, but so will I." I shook my head fiercely. "There has to be another way." He smiled faintly, that same sad smile he'd given me the night we first met. "You still believe in mercy. That's what makes you dangerous to them." "Them?" A voice echoed through the clearing before he could answer. It was low and cold, like the sound of wind through iron. "She carries your weakness," it said from the shadows beyond the stones. Figures appeared tall, dark, and half-formed, like smoke wearing human shapes. Their eyes gleamed red in the moonlight. Elias tensed. "Don't listen to them." One of the shadows stepped closer, its voice smooth and cruel. "You were born from us, Elias. You cannot defy what you are." "I made my choice," he said, struggling against the chains. "And I'd make it again." Another shadow laughed softly. Then let her decide. After all, her blood carries the key. I stared at them, my heart racing. What do you mean? They turned their hollow eyes toward me. Only your voice can break the seal. But when it breaks, one life must end to save the rest. My stomach twisted. No, I whispered. That's not fair. Fate rarely is, said Elias. He met my eyes then. His gaze steady despite the agony flickering through him. You can set me free, or end this curse for good. But not both. The chains glowed brighter, tightening around him. The ground trembled. Above us, lightning flashed, though the storm had long passed. Tears blurred my vision. You told me love could change fate. And it can, he said softly. Even if it means letting go. I shook my head. No, I won't lose you. He smiled again. You never will. Not really. The shadows began to circle us, their whispers growing louder, pulling at my thoughts. Choose. The book in my hands fluttered open on its own. Pages turned until the last one blank before filled with new writing that shimmered like firelight. Speak the truth of your heart, and the chains shall obey. My voice trembled as I looked at Elias. If I say I love you. He nodded once. Then the curse will end. But he cut me off gently. Then let it end beautifully. I swallowed hard, stepped closer and pressed my hand over his heart. It was burning, like lived beneath his skin. And then, through tears, I whispered, I love you. The air exploded in gold dot light poured from the ground, the trees, even the sky. The chains dissolved into sparks that rose into the air like fireflies. The shadows screamed, not in pain, but in despair, as they were swept away in the light. When it faded, I fell to my knees. The clearing was silent again. The storm was gone. Elias lay still before me, peaceful, unbound. I reached for him. Elias? He opened his eyes. They were no longer glowing. Just human. Just gentle. You broke it, he whispered. You're free, I said, tears falling. He smiled weakly. So are you. I shook my head. You can rest now. We can start over. But he only reached up, brushing his fingers against my cheek. My time's done, love. The curse took my centuries. You gave me one real night. No, I whispered. Don't leave me. He smiled again, and this time the gold light rose around him like mist. You'll see me again, in every sunrise. And then he was gone, just light, just wind, just memory. I fell forward, the earth soft beneath my hands, sobbing not from despair, but from something else. Something like peace. When the first light of dawn touched the stones, the book in my lap closed on its own. Its cover now bore a single word burned into the leather. Freedom. The forest was still. The air was clean. For the first time, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. The curse was broken, but something inside me had awakened, something that knew this wasn't the end. The world had changed. And so had I. The world felt quieter after the curse broke. Not empty, just hushed, as if the earth itself was catching its breath. The morning after Elias vanished, I walked through the forest with bare feet, the dew soaking into my dress. The air smelled of pine and rain, and something new, something alive. Every tree seemed brighter. Every leaf shimmered with gold dust when the sun touched it. The clearing where Elias had once stood was no longer hollow or haunted. It was filled with light. The stones that had glowed with ancient runes were now cracked open, their golden veins turned to soft moss. Nature was reclaiming what magic had held hostage. But I didn't come to see the ruins. I came to say goodbye. I knelt where he had fallen, pressing my hand into the damp earth. It was warm, like a heartbeat. I kept my promise, I whispered. You're free now. A soft breeze stirred the air, brushing through my hair. For a heartbeat, I swore I heard his voice in the wind. So are you. Tears filled my eyes, but they didn't burn the way they once did. They felt gentle, like rain washing away what was left of fear. The girl who had once been sold for being broken was gone. I wasn't a burden anymore. I wasn't cursed. I was chosen. Days turned to weeks. The village changed. The crops began to grow again after years of blight. The river, which had run dark and sluggish, now glittered like glass. The elders called it a miracle, though none dared ask how it happened. But sometimes, when the wind passed through the trees, I could hear faint howls carried through the distance, not of sorrow, but of freedom. They said the wolves had returned to the valley. I smiled every time I heard them, because I knew one of those voices still carried his spirit. Life went on. I rebuilt the cottage my parents had left behind, though it had always felt like a place of pain. This time, I filled it with light white curtains, fresh herbs, wildflowers pressed between old books. Sometimes I caught travelers on the road glancing at the place with wonder. The healer lives there, they'd whisper. The one who speaks to the wind. It was strange, being seen with reverence instead of pity. But I never told them the truth, that the voice they thought was mine sometimes wasn't. That on quiet nights, I still heard him whisper through the walls when the moon rose full. Not haunting, just watching, just loving. One evening, near midsummer, I sat by the lake at twilight. The surface reflected the sky so perfectly that I couldn't tell where water ended and heaven began. Traced circles in the water, and remembered the way Elias's eyes used to glow when he laughed. It wasn't just light, it was purpose. He had spent centuries under a curse he didn't deserve, punished for love, chained by magic older than both of us. Yet in the end, he hadn't fought for freedom. He'd fought for me. A creature like him could have chosen immortality, power, dominance, but he chose something far rarer. He chose tenderness, and that changed everything. A sudden ripple disturbed the water. I looked up, startled. Across the lake, a figure stood on the opposite bank. The light of dusk caught on his hair. It shimmered gold. My breath caught. He didn't move closer. He just stood there, watching me. His outline flickered like a reflection caught between worlds. Elias? I whispered. The wind carried the sound of my name back to me soft, familiar and full of warmth. Then the figure smiled, and with that the water stilled. He was gone. But I didn't cry. This time I smiled too, because love like ours didn't die, it transformed. That night, I dreamed of the valley as it had been wild, alive, full of moonlight and wolves that sang to the stars. Elias stood at the center, no longer bound by chains or darkness. He looked up at the moon, and when he turned, his eyes were no longer gold, they were human. He reached out his hand. I took it. And though it was only a dream, I felt the warmth of his skin, the steadiness of his heartbeat, the quiet certainty of his peace. You kept your promise, he said. So did you, I whispered. He smiled, and the dream began to fade. Before it vanished completely, I asked, will I see you again? He tilted his head. Every dawn that breaks, I'll be there. Every time your heart remembers love over fear, you'll find me. Then he stepped into the light, and I woke up. Years passed. The world remembered him in whisper songs. Stories, legends of a cursed alpha who gave his soul to save the land. Children played in the woods where shadows once walked. No one feared the night anymore. Sometimes I'd walk through the valley, now covered in wildflowers, and feel a presence at my side. Not heavy, not haunting, just there. The air would hum, faint but familiar, and I'd say softly, "You're still here, aren't you?" And in the rustle of leaves I'd hear his answer, "Always." I grew older, but the feeling never faded. Some nights, under the silver of a full moon, I'd see a lone wolf standing at the edge of the woods. He never came closer, but he didn't need to. Our bond had never been about distance. It was about recognition. He had called me broken once, but only because I didn't yet know what it meant to be whole. Now I understood. Wholeness wasn't perfection. It was acceptance. It was loving without needing to possess. It was letting go without losing the connection. On the last day of autumn, I wrote his name in the same book that had once carried the curse. The ink shimmered briefly, then vanished, as if the world itself had absorbed his memory. I closed it gently and placed it on the windowsill, where dawnlight would touch it every morning. Outside, the forest stirred. A single ray of sunlight broke through the clouds and landed on the clearing. For a moment, I could almost see him there smiling, free, alive in every corner of the world he'd saved. And I whispered, "We were never meant to be perfect. We were meant to be eternal." The wind shifted, carrying warmth through the open door. The candle beside me flickered once, and steadied. I looked toward the horizon, where the first light of morning brushed the sky in gold dot. And for the first time since that night, I felt something deeper than grief. I felt peace, because love had not ended. It had simply changed form. And in that golden silence I knew the truth. Elias was the dawn, and I was the one who remembered him.